Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Have you ever just stared at a calendar and thought about how much history is stacked underneath a single little square? Today we're taking one specific date, August 6th, and treating it not just as a random day of the year, but as a real microcosm of the entire human experience. Throughout history, as the Earth has reached this exact position in its orbit, humanity has seen some of its highest highs and its absolute lowest lows.
And it's crazy when you think about it, because this brilliantly illustrates the sheer duality of human nature. Just one single rotation of the Earth, happening on the exact same date across different years, manages to capture both our infinite capacity for creation and our terrifying potential for destruction. By examining just this one date, we can actually trace the broader arc of human civilization.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, empires, conflict, and devastation. 2. Giant leaps for mankind. 3. Evolution of society and law. 4. Notable figures of August 6th. And finally, the weight of today.
Let's dive into Section 1. Empires, conflict, and devastation. The dark shadows of history.
As we look back, this specific date reveals a pretty grim escalation of human conflict over the centuries. Back in 1806, we see Francis II dissolving the Holy Roman Empire, literally ending an institution that had stood for 1,000 years. Fast forward to 1914, right at the outbreak of World War I. On this very day, Serbia declared war on Germany, Austria declared war on Russia, and German U-boats were deployed right into the North Sea, setting the stage for global, mechanized warfare.
And that timeline inevitably leads us to one of the most sobering moments in modern history. On August 6, 1945, during the final stages of World War II, the United States B-29 bomber, known as the Enola Gay, flew over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. It dropped the atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy. This was the very first time a nuclear weapon was used in warfare, and it fundamentally altered the course of human history in a blinding flash. 70,000. That is the estimated number of people who were killed instantly in the devastation of Hiroshima on August 6th. It is just a staggering figure to try and process. To put that into perspective, that's enough people to fill a massive sports stadium, gone in an instant. And it's absolutely crucial to remember that this number only represents the immediate aftermath. Tens of thousands more died in the subsequent years from severe burns and radiation poisoning. It is an incredibly heavy legacy for one single day to hold.
But you know, history is rarely one-dimensional. The staggering devastation of August 6, 1945, shares a calendar square with the exact same date in 1991. And that day brought about the World Wide Web, which is perhaps our greatest tool for global connection. This side-by-side comparison sharply pivots our story, from the shadows directly into humanity's incredible drive for progress.
Which brings us to Section 2. Giant leaps for mankind. Triumphs of innovation and endurance.
Look at how human achievement completely scales up over the decades here. In 1926, we're looking at the absolute pinnacle of physical human endurance. By 1991, we've moved to groundbreaking digital connection. And by 2012, we are literally conducting interplanetary exploration.
Let's break those down. On August 6, 1926, Gertrude Ederle made history by becoming the first woman to swim across the English Channel. And she didn't just complete the swim, she absolutely shattered the existing records held by men. It was a massive historic triumph, and it fundamentally changed the perception of what female athletes were capable of on the world stage. A real game changer.
Then we leap forward to August 6, 1991. This is the day Tim Berners-Lee released the files describing his idea for the World Wide Web. He made it a publicly available service on the internet for the very first time. I mean, think about it. The digital universe you're likely using to watch this very explainer right now traces its public origins back to this specific date. It fundamentally transformed modern society and paved the way for the deeply interconnected digital age we live in right now.
And the scale of our ambition only grew from there. On August 6, 2012, NASA's Curiosity rover successfully landed on the surface of Mars. Let that sink in for a second. We went from swimming the English Channel to extending humanity's robotic reach across millions of miles of space to touch the surface of another planet, all marked on an August 6th.
Moving right along to Section 3. Evolution of society and law. Systemic changes and milestones. August 6th also serves as a major marker for systemic evolution. We see the birth of new sovereign nations in 1825 and 1962, a grim milestone in criminal justice in 1890, and a monumental leap forward for civil rights in 1965. Let's take a closer look at these milestones. For multiple nations, August 6th is actually a day of sovereign celebration. In 1825, the Bolivian Declaration of Independence was proclaimed, freeing the nation from Spanish rule. Then, over a century later, in 1962, Jamaica became an independent nation, ending centuries of British colonial rule. It's absolutely fascinating how this one date on the calendar hosts the birth of these distinct national identities across entirely different eras and continents. But, systemic shifts aren't always joyous occasions. On August 6, 1890, at Auburn Prison in New York, a man named William Kemmler became the first person to be executed by the electric chair. It's for sure a much darker milestone, but it represents a highly significant moment in the evolution and the ongoing debates surrounding the American penal and justice systems. And then we have an absolute cornerstone of American democracy. On August 6, 1965, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law. This was landmark civil rights legislation specifically designed to overcome the legal barriers that were preventing African Americans from exercising their right to vote. It was a fundamental systemic shift in American society that changed the political landscape forever.
All right, Section 4, Notable Figures of August 6th, Births and Deaths. The sheer randomness of history is just perfectly captured on this date. Back in the year 258, Pope Sixtus II was arrested and beheaded, making him an early Christian martyr. Centuries later, in 1881, Alexander Fleming was born. He's the guy who would go on to discover penicillin and completely revolutionize modern medicine. Fast forward to 1911, and the iconic American actress and comedy legend Lucille Ball is born. And then, in 1928, the revolutionary pop artist Andy Warhol arrives on the scene. How incredible is it that one single calendar date connects an ancient martyred pope, the pioneer of modern antibiotics, and the creator of pop art?
And that brings us to our final section, the weight of today, reflecting on the calendar.
Reviewing all of these completely disparate historical threads really highlights the incredible density of history packed into just 24 hours. On this one day of the year, humanity has plunged into the absolute depths of global conflict and nuclear devastation. But on this exact same day, we've also seen the ultimate triumphs of human physical endurance, the birth of the digital age that connects every single one of us, and massive legislative victories in the struggle for civil rights. It shows us that history isn't just some boring list of dates, it's a layered, complex web of human action.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering thought. What history will be made this August 6th? The calendar is really just a blank framework, but it's our actions that fill it with meaning. As you go about your day today, just remember that you are living out the future's history right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.